Hi, I'm Alex, and along with Dr. Russell Cohen-Hoffing, I host Field Test, a podcast game show all about cutting-edge scientific collaborations. You might be wondering why we chose such a zany format for what feels like such a serious topic. After all, shouldn't science be treated with the utmost sincerity? But in Russell and I's time as science communicators, we found that the biggest impediment to people's understanding of just how important science is to their lives is that it feels like something removed, something that happens elsewhere. So we hope that the fun and games element of this show makes you laugh. But more than anything, we hope that they help show you that the collaborative teams we have as our guests are real people, just like you and me. Anyway, let's field test.
Welcome to Field Test, the game show where we not only test scientists on the facts, but also on their friendship.
Field Test is a production of USC ICT in support of USCCDC Army Research Laboratory, the Army's public-facing research arm. ICT and ARL work within a scientific ecosystem which generates knowledge products ranging from impactful basic science to startup spin-offs. I'm Alex Schiffman, and with me, as always, is the cognitive scientist for all of us, your host, Dr. Russell Cohen-Hoffing. Russell, who are our guests today?
Today we're joined by two scientists, Dr. Ben Files and Dr. Mohammad Soleimani. So Dr. Files is a researcher at Army Research Labs. So Dr. Files, could you just introduce yourself and just tell me very shortly what you do?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Dr. Ben Files. I got my PhD in neuroscience. And now I've been working with Army Research Lab for about 5 years, looking at ways to individualize training to improve the effectiveness of training, um, discovering individual differences that are associated with effective adaptation to novel technologies, as well as some work looking at how brain signals relate to learning, behavior, and intention to act.
All right, and Dr. Mohammad Soleimani is a researcher at USC ICT. So Dr. Soleimani, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mohammad Soleimani. I'm a research assistant professor of computer science at ICT, the Institute for Creative Technologies at USC. My research is mainly about doing machine learning to recognize intentions, emotions, motivation. So essentially, mostly about sensing human behavior and human intentions and motivations.
I'm super excited to get more into talking about your guys' work. But before that, we when we were talking before, you guys mentioned that you guys are new collaborators. And so I just wanted to ask, I'm just curious about what about each other's work were you guys interested in?
Well, I can start. So I know Mohammed is doing really interesting work doing machine learning and really advanced analyses of the different sorts of signals you can get from people. And that was exciting for me because I have done a lot of work collecting EEG and other kinds of physiological um, sensor, other physiological data streams. Um, but my experience has been using fairly conventional analyses of those, and I know there's like this whole exciting world of machine learning that can really get a lot out of these super rich data streams. And Mohammed seemed like a great partner in getting there on some of that stuff.
And what about you, Mohammed?
Um, I found it actually that it's kind of what we know is very complementary because I've also worked on EEG in the past, but as I learn more and more about actually what is happening and what I'm learning with the models in machine learning, I realize that maybe I'm actually looking into artifacts and not anything that's related to brain activities. So I'm always interested to know more about what my models are learning to know whether we are actually looking into brain activity is something that's actually related to the effect we are looking at, or it's an artifact of, or some other confounding factor. And I enjoy working with neuroscientists because they know what they are doing, while we like more from the data aspect, and we use data-driven models. And I think that working with neuroscientists allow us to also have a better understanding of what we are building, and whether this is actually what we see is the actual, let's say, effect from the brain.
For the layman in the audience, Russell, could you explain what an artifact is in this context?
Okay. An artifact is basically that if you see a signal, something that you think is related to behavior, but it's actually completely unrelated. You think should be, but it's just a confound. So let's say, for example, EEG also picks up on muscle movement, and muscle movement is related to your behavior. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for brain activity
I see.
related to your behavior, not
So
muscle
it's
activity.
noise that confuses your signal.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're excited to play with you both today. So why don't we jump into our first warm-up game? Russell, do you want to explain how this warm-up game is going to work?
Yeah. So this warm-up game is connect the words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 words, and together you are going to try to come up with the one word that connects the 3. So I'm going to give one to Alex, for example. The 3 words that you need to connect are fried, rubber, and spring.
Fried, rubber, and spring. Fried, chicken.
Chicken.
Fried
So
chicken, rubber chicken, spring chicken.
exactly. Right. So I'm going to give you 2 sets of words, and you will have 30 seconds to be able to get the one. For each one, you will have 30 seconds. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any questions before we start?
Is there a collaborative element here? Or are we just going to shout words until we get the right thing?
Yes.
Okay. I can do that.
All right, Russell, I've got 30 seconds queued up on the clock. Tell me when to start.
3, 2, 1. So the 3 words are cottage, Swiss, and cake.
Cheese.
Cheese.
All right.
Oh, wow. That was extremely fast.
Okay. All right. Ready for your next one?
Hold on. Let me get it queued up again. Okay.
The 3 words are night, wrist, and stop.
Watch.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Okay.
We've got some real snipers on this team.
Wow. Destroying. Usually that stops. That has some more stopping power than than this has typically gone. All right. Well, you guys are obviously ready to play games.
Yeah, I got to be honest, Russell. I am afraid that we're going to lose even bigger than we normally do.
Probably. So should we just transition to our next game? Okay, so the way that this works is we will be playing a series of games that you will be playing, Ben and Mohammad, to illustrate the strength of your collaborative team and to illustrate the science you do. Each game is going to allow you to win a series of points to gain more than Team Field Test, Alex and I. And if you should win, you will get a prize on behalf of someone of your choice. So Ben, Ben, who will you be playing for today?
So I'll be playing for Dr. Pete Kushabe, who is been instrumental in facilitating collaborations between ICT and ARL. And so I have appreciation for his hard work on that. I'm playing for him.
He will giggle when he hears that. And Mohammad, how about you? Who are you playing for?
I'm going to play for my son. I guess that's an easy choice.
He will also giggle with Pete when he gets his prize. Okay. All right. So before we get started, Ben and Mohammad, please give your teammates some words of encouragement.
I mean, based on your performance in the earlier game, I think you got this. I'll enjoy watching you win all the games.
So, I count on you as the native speaker to know to pick up the words. So,
all right,
sure
Alex, let's Let's
Okay.
field test.
So the way that this game works is that Russell is going to start out by giving me an acronym, and then he's going to walk me through that acronym to try to help me guess it. He can't use any of the actual words in the acronym, and if I can get it all, then we get full points.
All right. Ben, why don't you give us a countdown, and then when Ben gets to 0, Mohammed, you can start the timer.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Alex, the acronym is OMLH. OMLH. So O are little furry sea bobbing creatures.
Otters?
Cute otters.
Otters.
And M is powerhouses.
Mitochondria.
Powerhouse. Okay. L is when something has holes in it, it leaks. Oh,
Leaks.
I
Okay, all right, just keep going.
Okay. H is when you are very warm. The thing
Hot?
that makes you warm is a property, a physical property.
Heat.
Yeah. All right. So
Otter mitochondria leak heat?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So all right. Well, we got it, except for
Russell hobbled us in the beginning.
So yes, otters mitochondria leak heat. So this is from a Science News article where researchers have found that the way that otters are able to maintain their body temperature is that they have super leaky mitochondria, in that they just release a lot of heat compared to other mammals. Mitochondria leak heat in otters.
Very cool. So let's move along to our first team pairing. So Russell, who's going to go first of our team, Mohammad and Ben?
First, Mohammad is going to give clues for Ben to guess.
So, but before I go, so you're gonna edit this out. So you actually you said what the acronym was, but then you were just explaining what it stands for. So
yes.
So I don't have to actually try to. Okay. So I essentially say it loud first, and then.
Yeah. You can do that. That's
and
very
if
helpful.
And if it's something he's used to, he can just like say probably even without.
Well, let's see if he can.
Okay, then I'm ready.
All right, I will give you a countdown in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, Ben, it's BPFB. So B is something that is that you are always working on. So the main topic of your research.
B.
So
gosh,
easy.
That's tricky. Biology,
No,
bioscience,
what neuroscience is about.
Biosignaling. I'm stuck on bio.
And we are talking about maybe an organ or.
Oh, brain. Okay. Yeah, brains are sure.
Okay, so so now we're at P. So
15 seconds left.
Oh, so we are very far behind. So, what are we trying to do in our research?
Predict.
So it's relevantia, and what do we predict?
Okay,
that's time.
Oh, that was fast.
I can't believe we got stuck on brain. I'm sorry about that.
I thought that brain was going to be the most obvious.
You were very confident going in there.
You were so confident. So what was the actual acronym?
So, brain predictive of future behavior.
So I brought this up. I chose this as an acronym because this came up in our previous conversation when I had asked you guys, like, what is so exciting about this research? And you guys talked about this, that the brain is predictive of future behavior. So I just wanted to ask that again to you guys. I was like, why is that such an exciting thing?
Well, if this is true, then you can measure signals from brain and and predict actions, so predict and anticipate actions in people. And if you can anticipate actions, then maybe you can be ready to either correct them or assist them.
What does that mean by anticipate actions?
So imagine you are driving a car that is anticipating your movements.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the car recognizes that you are getting into a crash, so the car wants to know whether it should activate an emergency brake. If the car knows that you are actually going to push the brake, the car's decision will be maybe really more confident in actually performing action. So it augments you, so it actually pushes the brake harder, maybe. So that's what it means, and how it might assist.
Yeah, and for me, there's also a kind of spookiness to the observation that we can detect brain activity associated with making a decision or making an action before we ourselves are aware we're going to do that. Um, and really, it's just a lot of brain activity doesn't rise to the threshold of sort of awareness or consciousness, but it's still happening and is still important in determining what we do next.
Yeah. So just to, I think where Ben is talking about that. So along with some of the articles that he sent me some articles on free will, and whether we have free will, I guess is that the implication of those kinds of questions, and how is that exactly related to what you're saying about the spookiness and that the brain predicts behavior?
Okay, so I'll put my cards on the table and say I don't really think this tells us anything about free will. But free will as a concept pretty rapidly becomes metaphysical in the sense that it's about like whether some deity is controlling your actions or if it's you or something like that. And about those topics, science has very little to say. But at a sort of casual level, right, I feel like I'm in charge of what I do. And if I'm not aware that there's something happening in my brain that's predictive of what I'm about to do, then that sense of who I am isn't necessarily actually what's in charge of what I do. And that's, you can easily get into this concept of free will and like predestination and all these other sorts of things. For me, it's just a matter of our awareness really isn't aware of all that much that happens in our brain. And for me, that's a really interesting observation that
It
there's so
seems
much.
it seems like for you, it's less of is this predestined and more of is my idea of what constitutes I too limited, right? The thing that makes my choices isn't just what is this realm of consciousness, but it's the entire system that is Ben, including your subconscious activities and things that happen below that veil of rising up to the Ben I'm talking to right now.
Yeah. And we're all sort of aware of the idea of subconsciousness in a sort of psychological sense, but there's also, I don't know, something about the fact that it's also perceptual and motor, that it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like this complicated psychological phenomenon, but just like the fact that we really don't see most of what we sort of think we see. And our brain is doing us a favor by not bothering us with the details of the fact that we can't really see with any clarity what's happening outside the central point of vision, but we're not
Don't
wandering around panicked because,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I don't know what details are over
Yeah.
here.
Don't worry, buddy. I got you. You go ahead and just worry about your coffee and what's on your cell phone. I'll handle bringing what's in the foreground to the background and vice versa.
And
Exactly. And if there's a
breathing.
tiger in the
Yeah,
bushes, I'll
right.
let you know.
Uh-huh. Otherwise, you're fine.
Yeah.
My stupid consciousness, he doesn't realize how much I do for him.
So that fact that the brain is predictive of future behavior, that's a meaningful thing, right? So what I wanted to, your research, right, is predicated on that fact. So I want to talk a little bit about y'all's research and how exactly do you exploit that? Do you use that and hope to exploit that phenomenon?
I think at this stage we are actually just looking into what is feasible and what is meaningful, because we might be able to capture something from the signal. We might be able to train a model, for example, that predicts a certain type of action. But what we are interested in is not only to know whether this is feasible, but also to know whether this generalizes to other types of actions, because we are looking into some experimental data in a very controlled setting, and it's always a question whether if we have a finding here, does it generalize to all types of action in every situation?
So I think actually this is because what I want to ask you, Mohammed, is be more specific about like what kind of actions and what kind of say transfer to other domains. But I think this is actually a really good spot for the next acronym game, because it's related to the paper that you sent me, Mohammed, and we will use that as a jumping off point to get more specific about what exactly, which actions you care about, which ones you're interested in, and what that looks like in studies. Okay, so our next acronym game is Alex is going to give me acronym, same rules as the previous game, and don't do the same thing that I did, Alex.
And tell you the actual word.
Ben, can you give us a countdown?
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
My acronym is FIPRICOLIP, and F. F to start is the cool thing I like to stare at when we're in the desert or in the forest. Math.
Fire.
It's a math thing. Self-similar, repeats on itself. Okay. The P, fractal, is a type of blank, so is like
physical.
No, it's like you put it on a dress
pattern.
Or like yes. R is when something repeats. A fractal does this, makes itself again.
Next one.
Okay, cool. The C is like this thing is normal. You see it all the time. It's the name of a rapper too.
Cube, Ice Cube. Cool.
No. It's like normal. It's typical. You see it
Common.
Wherever you go. Yes. L is where you work.
Life.
Yeah, say it. No, where you work.
Time.
Fractal pattern replicated in common lab plant. This is a team of scientists in France used DNA tweaking to get the cool spiral patterns of Romanesque broccoli to happen in a common, in a more common lab plant to see if they could make that just do itself, and it did.
Now you're gonna start doing it yourself all the time.
Yes, now I'm gonna do it to me so that
I can
have the same spiral patterns as. Oh, old fractal beard, the scariest self-similar pirate on the seas.
All right, awesome. We have a total of 4 points from our previous one and 0 points from this one. So, Ben and Mohammed, this is your chance.
Did you get any points for or you lost a point because you said the word for that?
From the previous one, we lost a point from that.
Okay.
So this is your chance to sweep. Okay. Come back. Okay. All right. Ben, are you ready with
I suppose so. Yes.
You're ready. And Mohammed, are you ready with the acronym?
Yes.
All right. Alex, give us a countdown.
Countdown. Let's get this started in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the acronym is EBER. Starts with E, which stands for the device we put on participants' heads to measure their brain activity.
EEG.
And B we'll come back to, but we're learning something from EEG. Okay. The next E is how you're feeling.
Emotion.
There you go. And R, when you see somebody and you're not sure who they are, but so EEG, emotion recognition, where the B is we're using EEG to do emotion recognition. So it's EEG.
EEG-based emotion recognition.
Hey!
Nicely done, team. Nicely done. Yeah, you had 20 seconds left on that, too.
Dang.
Yeah, I wasn't good at explaining. I should practice.
Good at connecting words and nothing else.
It took me 40 seconds to get brain. I'm not sure the problem was you.
So what does that mean, EEG based emotion recognition?
It means that we hope that there is something about emotions in EEG signals that we can capture. And so essentially, let me just maybe take one step back. EEG signals are electrical potentials, like electrical signals that you can capture from the scalp. So you can attach electrodes on our head, and they and and there are some electric potentials from our brain that they reach kind of the top of the scalp that can be captured. They are very weak electrical potentials, and they don't tell us about activities of a single neuron, but they tell us about activities of a lot of kind of a lot of neurons spiking at the same time.
And just to clarify, so EEG, this is one of the major ways that researchers, neuroscientists measure what's going on in the brain, because you can't just open up someone's skull and, poke it and measure
Yeah.
it. So you have to do it from the outside without harming anybody.
Yeah, but there are also, I mean, you know better than me, there are other methods to look into activities inside the brain without opening people's skull, luckily. But EEG is a is a way to actually follow activities on the surface of the brain with a very high resolution, so very let's say moment to moment. And we know there are changes in our brain activities that are associated with emotions. So, for example, if we feel negative emotions, maybe right side of the frontal part of our brain maybe it has a higher activation compared to the left. Uh, so this kind of activity can be picked up by EEG, and then we are teaching a statistical model to pick up these patterns and recognize what a person is feeling. So this is EEG based emotion recognition.
So getting back to the acronym EEG based emotion recognition. So you're able to train an algorithm that when you give it this EEG signal, it can tell you when somebody was feeling negative, positive. Like what can it what can it tell you? Or the study that you sent me, what were you able to show in that?
So what we usually look at is the polarity in emotion, so whether an emotion is positive or negative, and also the level or intensity of emotion, whether there was an intense emotion, whether there was a high level of activation in the emotion, or whether there was a low level of activation when somebody's calm or let's say activated. So these are the two kind of emotional dimensions or characteristics we recognize.
Have you had much success with this algorithm being able to recognize something on the this four way valence of if you're up, down, positive, or negative?
Yes, we had success in particular with positive and negative emotions, and we also know that it's partly because we are also capturing activations of the muscles on face. So we smile, then this gets to our EEG signals, and then that's a very large kind of high amplitude, very kind of strong signal that that we pick up as well.
And just to follow up on that, so the kinds of emotions, how specific can you get? I mean, can you tell that I am both interested and scared and need and a little bit embarrassed at the same time? Like, can you tell like how specific can you get with these emotion detection?
Um, no, we cannot get that specific. If you also talk to people from emotion psychology, the the that that there's no, let's say, strong agreement whether these emotions all exist in that form that we label them. So this is another story. Um, but what we find, let's say, correlations or what we find association with, oftentimes are these dimensions. So we know that if we look at brain activities or physiological responses in our body, like heart rate, we can see that, for example, if we are more activated, if there's a higher level of arousal, there are changes in our heart rate, for example, or galvanic skin response, electrodermal response. The way, like, if we are scared, we sweat, for example. So these are let's say the signals we are more certain of, but we do not necessarily have signatures like or specific signatures for all emotions that we could use for their recognition.
And so why would you want to do this? Like, how are you, is there some application of this, or yeah, what is the, yeah, why would you want to do this versus, I don't know, Alex is probably, are you good, Alex, at telling whether someone is positive, is acting positive or
Why are you
negative?
mad at me right now, Russell? Yeah, why are you so passively mad at me?
All right.
Yes. Right. What yeah, no, but I understand, why is it useful to have an algorithm be able to tell these things about a human through their brain spikes rather than through their face or through the words that the person says?
Um, so this can be helpful in situations where, for example, you have somebody who wants to track their emotions during the day, and you have a wearable device, for example, in future, and then they can look at their emotional profiles, and then they can see what essentially what triggers them, because sometimes we are not even aware of our own emotions in every situation. So that can be one application, but there are many. So you can think of, for example, an adaptive video game that adapts itself to your emotions so that you don't get bored. So it doesn't like maybe frustrate you too much. So it keeps you in that kind of very nice space that some people call flow, for example. There's a lot of work on gaming and emotions, for example. But there are many applications. You can think of health domain, um, I mean, even social interaction. So if you build an assistant or a robot, you want the robot to be able to pick up emotional signals the way we pick up in human interaction.
Oh, so you're saying that, emotion recognition is, almost something very central to what humans do with each other. And so being able to incorporate that into, say, I don't know, robots or other kinds of machines will actually improve how they interact with us.
So there are two dimensions here. One is that there are the social aspects. So we use expressions of emotion. We read them in each other when we interact, and that helps us regulate the interaction. Um, but there are also maybe subjective feelings, the feelings that we have, inner feelings that they might not necessarily be very easy to read by others, but they're still useful. For example, I'm just saying in terms of when you're watching something, or when you're playing a video game, or when you want to look at your emotional well-being, then it's good to actually be able to recognize what you're feeling, and not only just looking at what you're expressing. So that can be also
And I want to I
definitely.
want to pivot to asking Ben. So Mohammed's been talking about exactly, the specifics of why, again, why, what do you use, what kind of actions do you care about in terms of the brain predicting future behavior and such. So what about you, Ben? What are the kinds of actions and applications that you're interested in?
Um, so the context of the data set that Mohammed and I are looking at together, it comes from an experiment that was about a phenomenon called inhibitory control, which is the ability to not to stop yourself from doing something that you might have an impulse to do. And this comes up in a lot of contexts. Maybe you're trying to cut back on your caffeine consumption, and you see your coffee maker, and you're like, I'm going to make a cup of coffee. Oh, but I need to inhibit that impulse. Um, so that's one sort of example of inhibitory control. But when it comes, we're the Army Research Lab, and the science we do is to help soldiers. And something that comes up for soldiers a lot is whether or not to shoot. Um, and that's obviously a super highly critical decision, and they need to make it quickly. And there are there are situations in which somebody makes the decision to shoot or to fire or whatever. When had they had a little bit more time, they might have not done that. Maybe it looked like an enemy, but it wasn't, or something like that. So the ability to override the sort of default, if a target comes up, I'm going to shoot it because it's not actually what I want to be shooting, is really important. And the role of the experiment was see, well, is there some like simple sort of app-based training we can give people to strengthen this inhibitory control skill? But also, can we measure something in their brain to maybe predict if they're about to make an error of inhibitory control? And in that case, there are interventions that you could consider in a real application. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of heavy stuff for a fun science podcast. So I hope that's not too weighty, but that's, I mean,
Not a
that's sort of
bit,
the level
no.
of thing that gets me really interested in this inhibitory control concept, and seeing if we can predict errors of inhibitory control before they actually happen.
So yeah, you're talking about like I guess training applications, right? So I guess partially the idea would be, okay, the brain gives these signals, and can we take advantage of those signals to help optimize training, whatever that training is. In this context, it's about, you're saying about inhibitory control. So you're saying also that like the brain itself, I mean, I guess that makes sense. When you make an error, right? But you're trying to take advantage of the fact, all right, the brain knows far in advance before you consciously know that you make an error. So can you develop a system that can know far enough in advance that you can change something to then, alter, maybe stop somebody from making that error? Am I thinking in the right direction?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if we're thinking about an application in like a simulated training environment or elsewhere, it would probably be a matter of combining that brain signal with like a computer vision algorithm that's also making an assessment about whether or not the thing that just popped up is truly a target or not, and could combine its maybe uncertain assessment of the situation with a maybe uncertain assessment of the brain activity. And so instead of sort of those two things sort of independently trying to come to a conclusion, they're able to work together at a speed that's fast enough to make a difference before the actual error happens. Yeah.
Alex, what would you want to train? If we could, use your brain to predict something, what would you want to train?
Oh, God, that's so hard because I mean, like Ben was saying, there is a bit of this that's spooky and scary, right? And it's like, well, if you can get this far, why not just take me out of the equation in general? Because I'm thinking, oh, parallel parking, I'd love help learning how to do that better. I'm really bad at it, and I often make errors of judgment because I don't have the best depth perception, or I get scared a lot because, I'm worried that my girlfriend, whoever else is in the car, is going to judge me for doing a bad job. So there are all these emotional things happening that make me a terrible parallel parker that aren't just the fact that I'm not great with my hands. But at that point, why not just get me out of the equation in general,
I mean, I feel like that's kind of a superpower. Like, I'm always so impressed by people who can just like speed parallel park backwards at something. And if there was a training, if you could actually do a training app, I think you would probably get really rich.
If you could do a training app for parallel parking, would it? So when it corrects you, would it correct you in a way that felt really like shameful? Like, hey, you idiot, I know you don't realize you're about to like turn the wheel 5 degrees wrong, but you're about to. And like, well, I know I wasn't. It's like, yeah, you were. I know better than you. I can read inside your head. You're about to do that.
I mean, for some people, I bet that kind of feedback would be really effective. For other people, maybe you would need a different approach. That's something I'm also interested in, how apps can give feedback in ways that are individualized to be most effective for a particular person.
Yeah, I imagine you would want to make it more subtle, like feed it, like Mohammad was giving an example. You feed it into the car, and instead it just moves the steering wheel, like it nudges the steering wheel a little bit in the right direction, so that you get the right feedback. You get in the right location, the right feedback. So I would hope it would do something like that rather than shame you. So
Anyway,
yeah, let's. Oh, go
I
on,
just want to
Mohammed.
say autonomous parallel parking already exists, so maybe you can build something that parks for you, and you can pretend that you're doing it.
Oh yeah. I'll just keep one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand on my very cool sunglasses as it handles it for me. Okay, so the final question that we have before we go out isn't so much about the science that you both do, but it's more about the theme of collaboration, because this show is ultimately about fantastic collaborators. So we'd want to know from the both of you, I know that your collaboration is a new one, but what are the secrets to a successful collaboration?
I mean, okay, I'll say what I think, which is trust. I think it's super important for collaborators to trust each other. I think in the research environment, which can get very competitive, it's very easy to fall into a trap of sort of defensive behavior and making sure that your collaborators recognize your importance and expertise, which can get in the way of talking through difficult things and really getting help from the other members of the collaboration, because that's the point, right? We're supplementing each other, but to do that, you kind of have to admit your own weaknesses, which can be scary and difficult. But trust is the way to make that possible.
Mohammed, what about you?
Yeah, I agree that the kind of the atmosphere of let's say the working alliance, in the sense of having trust, mutual understanding, respect, and also just I think having aligned goals, uh, like that everybody's kind of like on the same page in terms of what they want to get out of the work. Um, and I find it easy to collaborate with people who are um, who have who share, let's say, research goals, and they're excited about let's say.
And are really good at games.
Mutually good at games.
I'm not very good at games, so I hope that doesn't. I failed miserably at the
You
acronym.
nailed those 3-word ones, so
Yeah, very impressive. So Russell, what was our final point total before we end the day?
looking up, adding the points, we have 4 points for Team Field Test and 5 points. A narrow win for Ben and Mohammed.
That's the closest we've ever come to winning.
Yeah. So congratulations to your son, Mohammed, and congratulations to Pete Kushabe. They will be very excited.
Ben and Mohammed, thank you so much for playing with us today, and we look forward to your future work.
Thank you. It was super fun.
And for all of those listening out there, thanks for spending some time with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to read more about the work of our guests, please look in the episode description. We'll see you next time. Bye.